Hello, welcome to our computer science capstone for winter and spring term 2022 Peerlife project. I'm your team lead Salem AlAthari, and I'm here today with my software engineers April Pickett, Arafat Iqbal, Staci Harding, Cody Green, Roman Bogushevich, and Sid-Ali Abdullahi.
Hey, I'm Arafat, and I will be talking about the overview of this project. So our sponsor is the Mental Health Addiction Association of Oregon, or MHAAO for short, and they provide peer services for those experiencing mental health and or addiction challenges here in Portland. So MHAAO created a board game that is meant to simulate and facilitate discussion around the mental health system. It's pretty much a card game. And our task for this project was to create a virtual version of that physical game. The reason for that is because the pandemic has been pretty hard for them to host events where this game is being played. So it's a lot easier if the game was virtual. We created a fully web-based game that can be played on any device with a browser and a stable internet connection. I will be going over the demo now. So when you first start the game, you're greeted with this welcome screen. From here, you have two options, whether to start the game right away or you can look at the instructions. When we're looking at the instructions, when we click on the instructions, you're taken to this page. Here you can learn how to play the game. You're given instructions on the scoring and how labels work, and interesting identities which subtract or add points based on if you are part of any of these categories. So a little bit about how to play the game. You're initially given a diagnostic label when you first start, and then you will be given a new card with each encounter you have, with the exception of pharmacy. You continue collecting cards until you have about 10. And then once you have 10 cards, the game pretty much ends and the discussion begins. For every card, you either add a point or subtract points towards your recovery. Here we can see a little bit about how points work. -5 points, you receive another diagnostic labels. Once you reach -10 points, you receive another one, and it keeps on going to 15. And then if you are getting +15 points, you are able to get rid of a diagnostic label, and it just keeps on going up to 30. So now let's start playing the game. When we first start, we're greeted with this screen. You can either start the game, or if you identify in any of these categories, you can click them, and for each one, you get -1 point. For this example, I will select all three, and we can see our current score is -3. This component is our game stat. From here, we can see our initial label, which is psychotic disorder. We can see our current score, -3, our card count, and our recovery scoreboard. Additionally, as we're playing, we will see side effects pop up at the bottom. So let's get started. From here, you're given 3 cards, and you get to choose any one of these 3. The first card tells us, drink alcohol excessively to cope with symptoms, get arrested, subtract 5 points from your recovery, and go to the hospital. So we do that. Here we can see our updated card count, our current score, and our recovery scoreboard. We continue on pretty much collecting cards and going different locations. Our score is getting updated, as well as our card count. Here, we're given an option to go to a pharmacy, which gives us our first side effect label. When we click on going to the pharmacy, the spin wheel is popped up, and we have 2 spins left. For every spin, we're given 1 side effect. So with our 2 spins, we're given dry mouth and sexual dysfunction. We'll continue playing this game up until 10 cards. Once you're at the 10th card, the game ends and you're taken to this screen. Here you can see all of your labels, all your score, your whole label, and your side effects. And that's pretty much it.
Hi, my name is Pickett, and I'll be talking about the target audience, key features, and the wheel of side effect. For the target audience, the game's primary audience is mostly for everyone, and its primary focus is to educate the participants about people with mental health issues navigating the behavioral health system. For the key features, there's 3, and the first one For the key features, there's 3 of them, and the first one will be the scoreboard with the labels, the second with the game cards, and the third will be the wheel of side effects. And I'll be talking about the wheel of side effects. So the next will be the wheel of side effects. So the side effects are randomly selected from the wheel spin, which will then give you a side effects listed on the wheel. The data from the wheel is handled within state and is used by various other components in the app. This allows the data to flow easily between all the components. For example, the scoreboard will change in real time with whatever effects the wheel spin give.
Hello, I'm Cody Green, and I'll be talking about the game cards and the scoreboard. So the game cards are what basically control the central loop of the game. There were a lot of them we were given, and our team hand entered them in JSON format. Cards are randomly selected. Each one has a different effect on the game, including changing the score and sending you to the pharmacy, which is the wheel of side effects. The data from the cards is handled within state, which is also used by various other components of the app. It allows data to flow easily between all the components, and this also allows the scoreboard to update in real time with what the cards are doing. The scoreboard shows the current values and reflect where you're at in the game. Each round will be listed in order on the page, and after 10 cards, the game is completed and you'll go to the end page. This also holds all of the labels and side effects that you get. Labels will update automatically with score. You'll be given a label initially and then added or removed depending on what your score is, and side effects will be updated each time you spin the wheel.
So how did we get to this final product? Well, we'll be talking about the architecture, our development process, how we divvied up the responsibilities, the unexpected events we faced, what our sponsors gave us in terms of feedback, and the lessons we learned throughout.
Our client asked for an application that could be easily shared for their use case and also cheaply hosted as they're a nonprofit. We decided to make a web application to be visited via the browser, because this is a shareable link that they could send out for their conferences, or at an event, people could visit and access the application. We also hosted this on Heroku, as it's a free solution for low use applications, which this client is. We wrote the application in Node.js framework because this is easily hosted on a web browser and also features libraries like React that we can use to make reusable components. Our sponsor had a request for the application to not feel like you're visiting a website, so we strove to make this a single page application. We used React Router in a limited fashion so that we only had 4 pages that you visited, one of which being the gameplay. We also used state, as previously mentioned, so that we had variables stored on the state, but that we stayed in the same page and just altered the display based on those variables' current value. We also included pop-ups and overlays so that we had some interactivity for our user and made them feel like a lot was happening on this one single page. We also recognized large amounts of data in the application, or in the board game rather, and decided to use that to our advantage in the application. We let this data sit on a card object in JSON files and really power that loop that gave us different states and various locations. We also were able to use util functions to do the thinking on small pieces of these objects instead of having to access or index into a large amount of data in one location.
Hey, my name is Roman Bogushevich. I'll be going over our development process. So development was split into two terms. The first term established what our long-term goals were. So we also developed UI and basic software design. We also identified third-party frameworks that we were interested in working with and began learning them. This was done so that we could really hit the ground running going into the second term, where we did most of our development. In the second term, we pretty much got agile with it. We converted those long-term goals into smaller chunks. We did weekly development sprints, and we had weekly meetings. Within those weekly meetings, we talked about progress in the last week. We planned development tasks for the next week. Of course, this was all an iterative process that built upon our previous work. And finally, we had an up-to-date weekly software build to ensure that whatever's hosted is the most up-to-date and stable version of software currently available.
Hello, my name is Sid-Ali, and I'll be talking about responsibilities and contributions. So the work for this project was split up into tasks and assigned by a volunteer system, and at the end by random, and some tasks remained unchosen. So the team consists of Salem, AlAthari, which is the team lead. They also did the project documentation and the game data. April Pickett took care of the wheel of side effects. Cody Green, the landing page, instruction page, and resizing. Staci Harding implemented the card system, the scoreboard system, underlying game logic, game data, and the architecture. Arafat Iqbal took care of the ending page, resizing, and project documentation. Roman Bogushevich took care of the hosting, resizing, and gameplay features. And myself, the gameplay features, bug testing, and compatibility. So for the unexpected events, we had to go through multiple design iterations where completed components were changed to ensure a better final product. We also had to learn a new language, Node.js, to navigate a larger code base using GitHub and ensure code dependencies were resolved, and also deploying a product that is both user-friendly and maintainable. We ran into issues making a cohesive product as it was splitting the components, but by having extra time to integrate each component, we're able to alter things so they would fit together in the final product. We were delayed as we were unsure what type of product our sponsor wanted, and by simply communicating, we ended up with a more clear idea on how to handle the final products.
So now I'm going to talk about, my name's Salem, AlAthari, and I'm going to talk about sponsor feedback. So after meeting with our sponsor and showing them our final product, they gave us some constructive criticism and wanted to make some changes to the final project that would make it more clear and accessible to all users. As when you're designing something that is this involved in user experience and user interface, you want something that people can simply look at and understand what they're supposed to do and what steps they're supposed to take. They also wanted minor changes to the game to make it more exclusive, despite how the serious nature of the topic that the game represents, as it's supposed to be a sort of mimicry of going through the churn of the real life system. They really enjoyed how simple the final product was and how easy it is to host, change, and alter if needed. They enjoyed how we left the final discussion at the end for a real person through a Zoom call or some other method to have, instead of having it be an automated questionnaire, as this keeps the real person feeling of the game intact. Now, with our final product, they can still use it as an option for remote meetings, as well as a digital demo for the actual physical copy of the game Peerlife. Due to COVID, they've had some of their get-togethers be digital, and having this game would allow them to still convey that idea across. So what lessons have we learned? Well, some lessons we clearly learned as a group was having an open line of communication with our sponsor is really important, as they may not be able to respond as quickly as possible. They might be out for a week or two as they're traveling, or they have other meetings or events going on. As usually we're working with people who have a lot going on in their lives and they may be very busy. Something else we've learned is that our modular design was very important, as it allows the team to split up the work in an effective manner that we can integrate quickly together, and allows us to pivot quickly if needed. If one of our components or parts doesn't work out, we can alter it, scrap it, or change it completely without losing the framework of what we've built on top of it. Something else I would have done if we had more time, or if I could do this process again, would be to go through a more thorough training phase, as most of us, including me, were new to using the technologies and we weren't accustomed to it. We were playing catch up on things that maybe we should have done better training and a more focused core. And finally, one thing I wish we could have done again, and will probably do if I'm ever given the chance again, is to get a clear idea of what we want to design from our sponsor, because we were unclear about the design process and what the final product wanted to look for our sponsor. So having that uncertainty can certainly slow down the process and slow down the overall execution of the project. Now, that was our project Peerlife. I would like to give thanks to our software engineers, as without them, this whole project wouldn't be possible. I would like to give a shout out to Janie at MHAAO and the people working there, as without them, we wouldn't be able to digitalize their wonderful board game Peerlife. I would like to thank Bruce Irvin and Dave Howell, PSU professors leading the Capstone class that helped us work to make this wonderful project a dream. I'd like to thank everybody who helped us make this project a success. Thank you so much.